This is the story of Emily, a 35-year-old freelance photographer who believed she had found love online. It began with a friendly message from a charming man named Alex, thoughtful, successful, and seemingly everything she'd been looking for. But behind the sweet texts and romantic promises was a calculated con known as a pig butchering scam, one that would leave Emily heartbroken, betrayed, and tens of thousands of dollars in debt. I still remember the exact moment I first encountered Alex. It was late on a Thursday evening, and I was curled up on my worn-out sofa, scrolling aimlessly through social media. Work had been hectic all week, and I was itching for some spark of excitement, even if it was just discovering a new travel post or connecting with someone interesting online. So, when a friend request popped up from a profile showing a bright, smiling man against a sunlit beach backdrop, I felt an inexplicable urge to accept. He messaged me right away. "Hi there, I've seen your travel photos in the Bali group. You have an amazing eye." At first, I was a bit startled by his boldness. Usually, strangers online are either awkward or overly pushy. But Alex seemed different. He asked questions about my photography, about the places I'd visited. He wasn't just throwing compliments. He appeared genuinely curious about my experiences. In no time, I found myself eagerly awaiting his next message. We bonded quickly over our mutual love for travel. Alex told me about the time he spent backpacking through Southeast Asia, trekking across hidden mountain trails and sampling spicy street food in night markets. I shared stories from my trip to Vietnam, recalling the serene beauty of floating markets at dawn. Our chats flowed effortlessly. He would send me snapshots of a dish he'd cooked or a beach he visited, and I'd reciprocate with photos of city skylines and pastel sunsets. There was a warmth, a gentleness that drew me in. Soon, our daily messages morphed into late-night calls. I was surprised at how easily we talked about everything: our childhoods, our favorite books, and eventually, the more delicate realms of ambition and desire. One night, I confided in him about my dream, opening my own photography studio, a sunlit space filled with my images from around the world. Alex listened intently, then told me he believed in my vision. His encouragement felt sincere, and I remember drifting to sleep that night with a smile on my face, replaying his words in my mind. Over time, Alex began mentioning his work in cryptocurrency. At first, it was more of a background note. He'd casually mention how profits from trading had funded his trip to Bali, or how he was using his earnings to upgrade his camera gear. I'd dabbled in small crypto investments before, but I was nowhere near an expert. He made it sound so straightforward: buy low, sell high, stay patient during market dips. He laughed about the volatility, calling it the adrenaline of digital investments. One day, he brought up a platform he was newly involved with, a high-yield crypto trading site that was invitation only. I was intrigued but wary. I'd read enough cautionary tales to know how risky these ventures could be. Still, Alex's apparent success and genuine demeanor lowered my guard. When he told me I could try it with a small amount, just $500, I relented, convincing myself that it was a manageable risk. I remember thinking, if it's as good as he claims, maybe this could help me start saving for my studio in earnest. To my astonishment, that initial $500 seemed to multiply. Within a week, my account showed an extra $150. It wasn't jaw-dropping, but it was enough to catch my attention. Alex called me right after I texted him about it, excitement ringing in his voice as he said, "I told you this would be a game changer." The energy in our conversation felt electric, like we were embarking on some grand adventure together. Cautiously, I added another $500, and then more. And each time, the figures on my screen rose steadily, tempting me to increase my stake further. By then, our relationship had taken on an undeniably romantic tone. We exchanged sweet messages first thing in the morning and tender goodnights before drifting off. He'd share stories of his day, sprinkling in little details about how he thought of me when he saw a captivating sunset or tasted an exotic dish. The topic of long-term plans tiptoed into our chats. He hinted at the possibility of us meeting in person soon, maybe renting a place by the coast where we could photograph turquoise waves at dawn. I was so wrapped up in this dreamlike scenario, blossoming romance and rapidly growing investments, that I ignored subtle red flags. The platform's website had no direct customer service number. All inquiries went through Alex. When I searched for independent reviews, I couldn't find anything reliable. When I asked Alex about it, he'd brush it off as a private opportunity that didn't advertise publicly. The sweet affection in his voice always lulled me away from deeper scrutiny. A few months in, my digital account boasted a balance that made my heart flutter. I decided to withdraw a portion to finally jumpstart my photography studio. That was the moment the illusion cracked. The platform informed me I had to pay a hefty tax fee before receiving any of my funds. Shocked, I turned to Alex, expecting a straightforward explanation. Instead, he insisted it was standard procedure for large withdrawals. He even offered to lend me some money to cover the fee, an apparent act of kindness that, in reality, was just another layer of deception. Conflicted, I couldn't shake the looming suspicion that something was amiss. Still, my desire to actualize my dream overpowered my doubts. I scrambled to gather the additional funds. Alex reassured me that once the fee was paid, the withdrawal would be quick and effortless. After I sent the money, I waited and waited. Days turned into weeks. The website stopped loading, showing me only error messages. My texts to Alex went unanswered for long stretches of time. Whenever he did reply, he offered vague excuses. The site's under maintenance, or there's a technical glitch, but don't worry. One evening, after endless attempts to refresh my browser and log into the platform, I was met with nothing but a blank screen. I tried calling Alex, but my calls wouldn't go through. His social media profiles vanished, and I realized with a sinking feeling that I'd been cut off. My heart pounded as the horrifying truth sank in. The money was gone, and the connection I'd cherished was likely orchestrated by a stranger who played the role of a doting companion just to earn my trust. I lost $50,000 in total, my hard-earned savings plus funds borrowed from family who believed in my newfound opportunity. The financial blow was devastating, but the emotional betrayal felt far worse. I'd opened up to Alex, sharing my vulnerabilities, my deepest hopes. All of it had been weaponized against me, turned into bait for a scam I never saw coming. In the aftermath, I felt hollow and ashamed. How could I have missed the signs? I spent nights replaying every conversation, every flirtatious joke, every earnest "I care about you" he'd spoken. The authorities took my statements and documentation, but the likelihood of recovering anything was slim. Cryptocurrency scams thrive on obscurity, and I was told there were countless similar cases just this year alone. Slowly, I confided in close friends and family, admitting what had happened. While some were disappointed, most were supportive, urging me to let go of the blame I placed on myself. Seeking therapy helped me wrestle with the emotional scars. My therapist pointed out how scam artists often intertwine romance and money, knowing that a sense of intimacy and trust can overshadow logical caution. In time, I learned that my longing for connection was not something to be ashamed of. It was simply exploited by someone skilled at deception. Even though I'm still paying off the debt and rebuilding my savings, I refuse to let this bitter experience define my life. I hold on to the dream of opening my photography studio, though I'll now do it through honest effort and careful planning. I also share my story with anyone who will listen, hoping to warn others about how these scammers operate, weaving fantasies of love and fortune so seamlessly that it can feel real. If there's one lesson I hope others take away from my story, it's this. Genuine love and respect never demand large sums of money under suspicious circumstances. If someone applies pressure or uses emotional connection to push you into sketchy deals, listen to your instincts, ask questions, verify every claim, and don't be afraid to walk away if something seems off. Trust is a wonderful thing, but blind trust can be a weapon in the hands of those who only see you as an easy target. I still take photographs, capturing life's beautiful moments whenever I can. It's part of my healing process. Sometimes I'll recall the early days of talking to Alex, back when everything felt so hopeful and bright. It's painful to remember, but it reminds me that not everyone who steps into your life is who they claim to be. Even so, I haven't given up on the idea of finding real love or true companionship. I've just learned to keep my eyes open and my heart protected, because in a world full of illusions, self-awareness and caution might be our best defense. Subscribe to stay informed about all the new scam methods. Together, we can fight them with information and help others stay alert.